Welcome to Ali Fitness Podcast, a weekly production all about bringing health into fitness. You don't need more sleep, you need better sleep, says Tara Youngblood, co-founder and Chief Science Officer at Cryo Inc. Since launching the ChiliPad in 2007, I've mentioned it a few times on my social media, Tara has spent over 10,000 hours studying the science of sleep. Applying her analytical skills from her physics and engineering background, her passion currently is to shape the future of sleep-driven health by making sleep easy and drug-free. Tara is a visionary leader in the future of sleep-driven health, combining multiple disciplines, including alternative medicine, physics, and sleep diagnostics. Her research has led to over a dozen patent filings. She works with leading international researchers to further studies on cold therapy and its impact on sleep. She has authored the leading white paper connecting 70, research papers to the effects of temperature and sleep quality. As co-founder and executive of Cryo, Tara contributes to the strategic direction and daily operations of the company. As an expert in sleep science, she is a highly regarded international speaker, and out of the office, Tara is a passionate global traveller. She's visited over 5 continents and a dozen countries, and I believe Australia is one of those. She's involved with multiple community philanthropic activities, including youth sports and international relief trips. She's constantly seeking new opportunities to improve the quality of life by those most affected with sleep disorders. Tara, thank you so much for coming on today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
I had to shorten your bio because you're so experienced that I had to take some things out. But tell me, how well do you sleep?
Actually, it's definitely a challenge. It's a challenge for everybody. I like to have the occasional drink, which isn't good for my sleep, and I know better, but I still do. And I have 4 boys that I chase around the world, and traveling itself is hard on your circadian rhythm. So I try to sleep the best I can and constantly track it to make it always the very best for the scenario that I'm in.
And given that you travel so much, I've got to ask you this, do you take the ChiliPad with you?
We do some of the time. I mean, that's the perk of traveling for business, and that's our business. So we'll have it with us. Not always. So I do have some hacks that I'll use of just the normal looking for sunrises and being out at peak sun in wherever I'm at to kind of try to mitigate that. But if you do try to get your sleep so it's consistently good, you will be able to have that carryover effect. So we've had people we've worked with that haven't slept through the night in 10 years, and the ChiliPad has been able to improve their sleep. And now when they travel, they still have better sleep as long as they generally come back to it within a week or so.
Okay. So can we start maybe by you sharing with us how you and your partner Todd started Chili Technologies and what actual products you invented?
Yeah. So Todd and I, it really starts with Todd's uncle invented the waterbed. And so Todd and I met in school, and shortly after graduating college, went to go and work for him, developing products, getting them manufactured, some in China, some in the U.S. And then from there, we sort of went out on our own after he sold his company to someone else. So we've kind of done a whole bunch of different products to market, over 100 in various categories. And so when we started having kids, we decided we wanted to try to do this on our own. And we really came back to the idea of sleep. We stumbled upon really this sort of idea of using the TEC technology we use for cooling the ChiliPad and OOLER is the same that's in a computer laptop. And using a quiet way, because a compressor in a refrigerator is too expensive and it's too loud to sleep with. And so that's how we sort of combined it into cooling for sleep. It was originally sort of like this iteration of let's be more comfortable while we sleep, and being able to adjust temperature individually made sense because Todd sleeps hot, and I would sleep hot when I was pregnant with our boys. And I just would have a different temperature than him no matter what, it seemed like. So that's sort of where it started. Once we started shipping product and we got feedback from people, that's really where we got into the science, because we would get the feedback of, wow, I can really sleep with this.
And so just for our listeners who have been living under a rock and don't know what the ChiliPad is, it's I like to say it's like like an electric blanket for cooling, but it actually does heat as well, right?
It does. So I will only take exception in the sense that the science of electric blankets is it's so bad for your health of the EMFs that it puts off. Electric blankets are notorious for that. They're cheaper, a really cheap heating solution, but anytime you have those electric coils in your bed, it's a real watch out from an EMF side. So we use water to cool and heat in the bed, and we can adjust the temperature between 55 and 110.
And that's Fahrenheit. Someone asked me once, is that Celsius or Fahrenheit? And I'm like, do you understand what 55 degrees Celsius is?
Yes, that would be really hot.
Exactly. And so you mentioned the ChiliPad a few times. You also threw in there the OOLER. That's obviously one of your newer products. If you can maybe explain to us exactly the difference between the ChiliPad and the OOLER, and then is there any other products that you currently have on the market?
Yeah, so as far as sleep products, the ChiliPad and the OOLER are our two products. We do them in whatever size bed, so it's geared towards bed or half a bed. So we have all those various sizes, but it's just the ChiliPad or the OOLER. The ChiliPad is a basic thermostat for your bed. You're going to set the temperature, whatever that comfortable temperature is for you, and then you set it, forget it, you go to sleep. And it's always that same temperature. The OOLER is sort of that next iteration. If you have had a Nest or a programmable thermostat where you set it and at a certain temperature it turns on or turns off, or it maybe goes cooler when you get home from work, that would be the equivalent of the OOLER. So you can program it. It has an app. It's got a little lower profile to go under a bed. It's got sort of some upgrade improvements that way.
Okay. And then obviously the price point is different as well. You pay more for the OOLER.
Yes, you do.
Excellent. And I want to delve into a bit more of the science behind everything. And I guess before I do, I wanted to ask you what are the patents that you, I know you filed a lot of patents. What are the patents that you sort of have for the Chili technologies?
Yeah, so some of them are sort of basic on the structure of the pad and how the pad works. So it's, pretty functional. We also have patents involving how you interact and with temperature throughout the night. That's probably, there's 2 patents that way, and those are probably my favorite. When you think of sleep manipulation, it sounds very obtrusive, but what we're looking for heading in sleep is a way in which temperature, because it interacts with your body unconsciously. So Clifford Sapir out of Harvard is one of the first people to really coin the term of sleep switch, but your neurons in your hypothalamus are actually activated or excited or change that state and release the hormones like melatonin based on temperature. And so we really want to be able to use that natural system in your body, which tells you to go to sleep, when to stay asleep, when to have deep sleep, when to have light sleep, when to start waking up. We want to use temperature to basically enhance that and make it fit that regular schedule. So as we age, that sleep cycle of nice deep sleep in the beginning and then more REM sleep in the morning, our temperature drops 2 degrees. That's beautiful when we're 20 for most people. It's not when we're 60. So somewhere between 20 and 60 to 80, when we get no deep sleep, we're having a hard time staying asleep. We're waking up multiple times during the night. Depending on your personal profile, that, when that happens or when that starts to change is it really depends on the person, but that does happen throughout our lives. And temperature is a way to sort of change that, to get it back to getting that 20% of optimal deep sleep and keeping your sleep stages distinct and healing.
And I like in the app how you have that function in the OOLER to be able to start warming up as you start to wake up, and that it almost is like an alarm to wake you up.
Yeah, so that's Jerry Siegel out of UCLA did a whole hunter-gatherer study on how if you look at how hunter-gatherers sleep, we always have kind of assumed that they wake up or go to bed with the light, and light absolutely has an effect on sleep and can help amplify or affect those circadian rhythms. But temperature was the signaling factor for those hunter gatherers. They only slept between 6 to 7 hours a night. They got great deep sleep, but they followed that temperature profile outside every day, all year round.
Okay, so given those patents that you have, do you have any competitors?
We do. There's some other ones out there. Part of the tricky part of having done patent stuff is as new products come to market, the products that are out there, we're currently doing patent evaluations on them. So there's, we're working through how that's all going to work out on their side, but that is definitely part of the tricky part of bringing products to market.
Right. And I know there is a product out there that's actually a whole mattress as opposed to what you do, and this is why I refer to it like the electric blanket, in that it's like a blanket as opposed to a whole mattress. And I love that idea because I personally wouldn't want to change my mattress. Is that something that you've thought about, actually installing a whole mattress, or would you prefer to stick to the blanket?
So that's a great question. We've actually have made a ChiliPad mattress. It only sold for a very brief time because part of the problem about the mattress is it's really like a sofa or a couch as you have in your house. It's got a lifespan of probably 8 years. Some people may get more of them. It's a bunch of foam, and it should be comfortable, and it should suit your style of how you like to sit in it or lounge in it. If you want to have an adjustable bed, whatever you do in that bed, other than sleeping, or even as well as sleeping, what that pressure is very individual, and its lifespan doesn't match the technology that we have. So we've kept it separate so that it's easy to upgrade or change out the pad. OOLER has a slightly different pad than ChiliPad, so if you want a little bit more efficient or higher cooling, you're going to go for an OOLER, and that allows it just to be flexible that you can change it out.
And what sort of lifespan then would you have on your ChiliPad and OOLER?
It's about 3 years. And mostly that just ends up, we just ran into a woman that still has one of our original products. We originally came out in 2007. So it's not to say that it can't go that long, but we're continuing to innovate and bring out new technology. And that's, we would hope at some point, a ChiliPad user may start with that, but as they learn more about their sleep cycles, they may want to upgrade to an OOLER. And we project that, within 2 years, we'll probably have advancements in the app and advancements in the OOLER. So that's how we kind of gear it, is I would want to upgrade in that period of time.
Got you. Yeah, I'd love to delve into the future of sleep technology a bit with you in a minute. But I just want to come back to the science behind it all. And I mean, you've already touched upon this a bit, but just before we do that as well, I'd like to tell you about my N=1 experience with the ChiliPad. So the reason why I was fascinated with it was because I hate air conditioning. In fact, it actually affects my chest a bit with my asthma. Mm-hmm. And so I've always tried to not use it. My husband, like your husband, is a hot body, and so it's very hard to avoid. And so when I heard about this, I was excited. And another thing that I heard just one other person mention was that they always, since they were young, go to the bathroom several times during the night. And I've always done this, and I think it's partly due to how hydrated I stay. But I always manage to get up, and it doesn't disrupt my sleep too much, although obviously it does to a certain extent. And so I didn't sort of have any expectations of this. But one profound I guess N=1 experience that I've had is that I haven't been getting up during the night, like maybe once, I think, at most, and I'm talking like 4 or 5 times a night since I was very young. So that's amazing. Can you tell us the science behind that, or is that just weird?
No, absolutely. So that is probably, when I think about what people say, well, where does the passion come from? It's talking to people that have not actually slept through the whole night in a very long time. It's all different profiles, but for the most part, your body wants to drop about 2 degrees. Your core body temperature wants to drop 2 degrees in the middle of the night. And that really depends on when you go to sleep and when you wake up a little bit, but somewhere between 2 and 4 in the middle of the night, you want to be at your coldest. And that's where you're getting, your deep sleep. And if your body is struggling to be that cold, and probably with a hot husband, you're probably waking up because you've been hot. For a lot of people, especially as you get older, that's definitely part of the signature. So temperature, we know when we start to not feel well, we run a fever. It's just one of those first signals that something's a little bit off. And as we age, our ability to manage our temperature, to mitigate being too hot or too cold, becomes more difficult. So that's one of the reasons, again, somewhere between 20 and 80, people start changing that temperature profile, and it gets harder to stay asleep the whole night.
Yeah, I never really correlated it to temperature, although I do use an Oura ring, and I have had messages from the Oura as I wake up saying things like, your temperature was a bit elevated last night, so you didn't get the quality of sleep that you needed, or something along those lines. And I haven't had those messages at all since using the ChiliPad. So, and obviously not getting up during the night, knowing that there's something happening there. So that's very interesting to me, and I think a great benefit that I wasn't expecting. What other benefits can we I guess expect? Or I mean, I'd like to refer to the 2018 the white paper on using cold therapy to mitigate thermogenesis during sleep. Can you share a bit of the science behind that for people that haven't read that paper? And obviously we'll link to that from your site.
Yeah, so it really goes back to some of that hunter and gatherer. We've lived in an outside society. Really, even, the inside version 100 years ago was still very much attributed to whatever temperature it was outside. It might have been like the shade version, but we've really matched our bodies to this temperature that's been outside. And when you follow circadian rhythm, it matches what happens outside during the day and at night with temperature. As we age, it definitely decreases. Being able to keep your body cool has overall healing effects. So there's effects on how you manage your brown fat, how you manage stress, how your metabolism will change using cold therapy. They've used cold therapy. I mean, you still put cold therapy when you have swelling or inflammation. So treating your body, basically it's giving it the option to be a little bit cooler. It runs better. It helps the circulation. The number of things that cool therapy can do is a really long list. Being able to do it at night. So some people may have tried cryotherapy and going in those super cold tanks. It increases your circulation. Some people even have an oxygen sort of buzz where they feel like, wow, I really am elevated. Especially someone with asthma, I'm sure would have that a little bit of that effects of just highly oxygenated blood that just feels great. We recognize it when it happens. Cold therapy does those things. Being able to do it at night when you're asleep and you're really not having to get into a cold bath or put an ice pack on yourself or go into cryotherapy is just a nice way to still get that healing treatment at night.
Yeah, excellent. And so you touched upon your beds, sort of your, ChiliPad lasting about 3 years. And part of that, I guess, as you mentioned, is because the future of sleep technology is just changing. And so you'd probably want to upgrade. Can you perhaps share with us some of the ways in which you think it might change and what's sort of on the horizon for us with regards to sleep technology?
So I think the two things that affect long-term health, one is the amount of stress in your life, and some of that you can mitigate by healing that stress out overnight. And if you're watching your HRV scores, you're able to see how your stress recovery and some of those stresses on your body are being flushed out by sleep. The other thing is just being able to recover some of the things we talked about with that cold therapy, of being able to reduce inflammation, keep your metabolism at a higher level, keep yourself oxygenated. And work on all of those healing hormones that happen at night. That's the long-term future. Most of the things affecting our health today are not the triage. There's things where you have an injury, you need a broken arm, and you need to go to the doctor and get that fixed. But most of the issues like autoimmune disease or chronic pain, those are all things that sleep can affect. That's long-term healing. That's not a short-term fix. In fact, we're finding with painkillers and opioids that we tried to find short-term fixes for, that it really has to go back to this long-term, let's fix this slowly, carefully, and then it goes away. So we believe the future of health is in sleep because that's when your body wants to heal anyway. You're in the deep sleep zone, your body wants to release hormones to heal, to repair, to recover from your day. And if you do that healing at night, going back to some of the patents, the future of sleep is to do the treatments similar to you would if you went to a naturopath or a doctor, where they would give you PEMF or other sort of interventions that are non-invasive, non-drugs that you can do at night. It's more convenient and better for your body to do that at night.
So can you perhaps share with us a few things that you might be doing in the future?
Yeah, so one of the top ones is to reduce EMFs in the bed while you're sleeping. They're a terrible combination with retaining stress. So when you are highly stressed out and you have this other force of EMFs going on, it's really not good for you. A lot of people are going to turning off their Wi-Fi or shutting down some of the electricity around where they're sleeping. But with the rise of 5G and some of these other technologies where it's going to be part of your sleep environment, whether you want to have it there or not. Part of that is to create sort of a Faraday cage environment where we can have a protective space for sleep. And so really most of them is, first of all, create a protective space so that your environment is healing. It's the right temperature. It has the right lighting. It has the right sound and smells, everything, all your senses, anything that's still activated while you're sleeping, which most of your senses are, utilizing all of those to create the ideal sleep environment.
So are you alluding to perhaps creating some sort of cave that people get into?
Yeah, we kind of think about it as a pod or cocoon, but that's kind of the direction that it's headed.
Excellent. Well, I look forward to that. I guess the first time I saw those sort of looking things were like the capsules in Japan that where you sleep in them, in like the hotel capsules. Have you seen those?
Yes. I think that's where it is. We have this idea that sleep should happen in 8 hours, all consecutively, neat and tidy. But in the modern life, that doesn't always work. We still need to get sleep, and I think as sleep becomes recognized as a very important part of health, we're going to allow nap pods. We're going to, allow these sort of real sleep break spaces. So people are getting great sleep, and they can be found hopefully anywhere.
Excellent. Well, I look forward to that. And I also heard that you're expanding to other countries. I heard you're going to Australia soon. Is that right? Where else do you supply to?
Yeah. Well, right now we'll ship it technically anywhere in the world, but we are expanding into the UK and Europe, and Australia are two big markets for this fall.
And obviously that means changing the electric side of it, how it plugs into the wall and everything else.
Yeah, and there's some subtle bed size differences in Europe and things like that, so that it's set up for that market the right way.
Great. And so how will people be able to buy these products in the future? Will it still be going to your website?
Yes, but if you're accessing in from Australia, for example, you would be redirected to the Australian site, which would really look exactly like our site. It's just going to have the products with the right approvals, cords, metrics, and dollar amounts for that country.
Got you. And Tara, the other question I had was around the closeness of the cooling to your body. So if you're sleeping with clothes on, for example, your body, your skin's not getting so close to the ChiliPad. Have you thought about or investigated, and I'm sure you're aware of vests that people wear sometimes when they're exercising in the heat, the cooling vests, and other types of clothing that people could potentially wear to sleep?
Yeah, the biggest problem is tethering it to that electronics. So right now we are tethered to sort of that control unit box, but that is outside of the bed. Like you can either be under the bed so that at least you have the mattress between you, or next to your bed, but it can be outside of that sleep space. As soon as you have any electronics in your bed, you're adding that EMF field to your bed. So we really try to keep that separated. That's probably the biggest difference. Those vests probably work on the same technology. All the ones I've seen, they work on a very similar technology as ours. But having it underneath you means that that surface stays consistent that your body's on. And it replicates sleeping on the ground. So if if you kind of picture the hunter-gatherer scenario of sleeping on the ground is always that consistent cool temperature.
Okay. So could you change the technology so that clothing could be an option?
We've gotten requests. We've done on special projects. We've put them in wheelchairs. We've done some research into doing them in a sleeping bag kind of environment. We're doing some projects for the U.S. military along those lines, and that's about as far as I can get on that one. But, if you're in the desert, having basically a mini cocoon that you can climb into would be advantageous, as you can imagine. So those are some of the directions that we're heading with it. The clothing one is just hard from a portability. You can get some cooling, but you need a fair amount of power in order to get enough cooling to cool that core body temperature. So your body runs about, well, it depends on size and gender, obviously, but somewhere between 60 and 120 watts of power you're giving off. And we have to find a way to mitigate that and disperse that heat. That's what the ChiliPad or OOLER does. Your vest is going to do some of that, but it's not going to be enough to change that core body temperature by those 2 degrees that we're looking to hit for sleep.
Okay. And Tara, I don't know much about temperature, but I always thought that your head was a big, I guess if your head was hot, then your whole body was hot, or your head heated up first. Is that right? And if so, why don't we have a ChiliPad pillow?
Okay, so there's a great answer for that. We have looked at that. We get that request all the time. So when you wear a hat when it's cold outside, or you feel like your heat vents through your head, it's because you're hot. It's the same reason you sweat, and you sweat in certain areas more than other areas, although you will sweat all over your whole body if you get hot enough. But again, we're focused on your core body, which is really from your neck to, your thighs. That area is the area that controls and triggers that sleep switch that really affects our sleep quality. So if that core body, those organs of your heart and lungs, that area right in there does not drop 2 degrees, that's what affects our sleep. That is honestly what will make us flip our pillow, because we're covered up with blankets, all the other things. That's the easiest way for your body to vent heat. It's the first place your body's going to look to vent heat. After that, it'll start sweating in the usual underarms and other places where we expect to sweat. But your head and face is one of the first places for it to give off, because you don't want to overheat your brain. Your brain can't handle that. It doesn't have the natural cooling mechanism. So keeping your head cool is the first place your body will vent. But we find most people won't flip their pillows, similar to they won't get up in the middle of the night. They won't flip their pillows if their core body is cool enough.
Okay, but wouldn't it help cool the body down if your head was being cooled at the same time?
Potentially, but you want to also keep your head, you want the circulation to flow back towards the core. So right now, like you'll see certain things of like warming your hands or feet before you go to bed. That'll sometimes trigger you to fall asleep. The reason warming your feet or hands is because it's on your extremities and it forces that circulation in. We want to push all the circulation back to the core, because although the trigger is in your brain, the core mechanism is in that core part of your body.
Okay. And Tara, we've spoke a lot about sleep on the podcast because I've just become to realize that I think it's actually the number one most important thing. I know stress is a huge factor this day and age with health, but I actually think that, you're going to be stressed if you don't get enough sleep. So I think it all starts with sleep. And I've heard some great guest speakers from sleep doctors to biohackers telling us how to get optimal sleep, how to prepare for sleep. Can you share us your, expertise around, obviously using the ChiliPad is number one, but before maybe even starting from the morning all the way up to the evening, how you would recommend preparing yourself for sleep?
Yeah, of course. So the peak solar gain of the day is around 9 o'clock. Obviously that shifts a little bit depending on seasonality, but we kind of think of noon as being that peak part. But as far as your body's concerned, being out before 9 o'clock in some sort of sunshine, not just in an office, but actual get those rays really helps to trigger the start of that circadian rhythm and sort of get a good start to your day. I really also highly believe in meditation, journaling, some sort of introspection, which helps manage that stress, helps keep you on track. Exercising, and again, whatever that looks like for you. Some people it can be as simple as walking. Other people it's more their intense workout. It's matching it to whatever stage you're at or whatever you want to do for your body. And finish to me the next thing is sort of making sure that you've eaten dinner not so late that it affects your digestion, because you still want to digest before you fall asleep all the way. So to try to do that, finish that a couple hours before you go to sleep. Make sure you drink lots of water, and keep your body balanced. And then I usually try to wind down and give up the electronics a half hour before I go to bed, even dim the lights sometimes if it's been a tough week, and start sort of telling your body it's time to get to sleep.
I like to do that 2 hours before, but you're nice and lenient saying half an hour there, and I guess
it's having teenagers.
You're
you
more
don't
practical.
Get a choice.
and then you mentioned earlier too the importance of turning the Wi-Fi off. I'm assuming you do that as well.
Yes.
Excellent.
Yeah, try to get all that electronics out.
Okay, perfect. Well, they're great, helpful tips. And Tara, look, before I let you go, I'd love to ask you a question that we ask all our guests on the show, slightly random, but do you have a tattoo?
I do. I have two.
Oh, what are they?
So the first one I got when I turned 21, and it probably speaks to my goofy sense of humor, but I felt like I always wanted to have a bear butt. So I have a bear on my butt because that way it just seemed funny at the time. And then the other one I got that it's a butterfly, but it's a design that I did that has all of my boys' initials in the design of the leaves of the wings of the butterfly.
Well, all of you boys, including your partner, or?
No, actually, Todd is not in there. He's got his own. We got our tattoos when we turned 21 together, so we kind of did that separately.
Very cute. Excellent. And for our listeners, and thank you to Chili Technologies, we've got an awesome discount for the ChiliPad, which I highly recommend. So I'll put that in the show notes, Ali Fitness 25 for an awesome 25% discount. So thank you for that. And thank you so much for coming on. And Tara, just to end, is there anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners who are all about, fitness and health, and just because you're fit doesn't mean you're healthy. So is there anything that you could share with our audience that perhaps might be a good takeaway for them?
Yeah, so I do workshops. My most recent workshops have been focused around this idea of tiny habits. It actually came from BJ Fogg at Stanford, but the idea that you don't have to make change in big, huge, sweeping, difficult, momentous ways. Even if you just start breathing better, you start going to bed earlier, you try simple things that are easy to start. Your journey to better health doesn't have to be so momentous that you're going to put it off till next week. Start today, because it could be as simple as, doing a better breath or journaling or doing something. And if it doesn't make it every day, it doesn't mean you've failed and you need to stop. It means you just need to keep trying.
I love that you mentioned that, because I used to be all or nothing, and James Clear soon talked me out of that. And his book, Atomic Habits, I've interviewed him on the show as well, and he talks all about that. Small changes make huge differences in your life, and so I'm glad you brought that up. And where can we find out more about your workshops? Are they also on your website?
Yeah, for right now, most of them are just sort of pop up. We post them on our social media pages. You can find them on our podcast section. I will be starting mid-August. We're going to do Friday whiteboards, which will be a fun new, more interactive way to interact with our blogs. So you can look for me on Friday whiteboards soon.
Excellent. Tara, thank you so much again, and I look forward to hearing everyone's experience with the ChiliPad.
Yes, me too. Definitely contact me. I love to hear the stories.
For all the resources and show notes from today's episode, please go to www.ali.fitness. If you liked today's episode, please show your appreciation by going to iTunes, give us a 5-star review, and subscribe.